A new generation of gaming is upon us, and I'm super excited to dive into some of the incredible looking games like The Order 1886, Infamous Second Son, and of course Final Fantasy 15. But this video isn't about looking forward, but rather taking a look back. The PS3 is a system that really got me back into games after mainly replaying old ones for years, and I'm here to recount my 10 favorite. Sony really brought it near the tail end of the generation with some amazing exclusives, and I have to say that it was really hard to narrow down this list to only 10. But here they are, my top 10 favorite PS3 exclusives. Folklore. Now, to be fair, there probably are a lot of other better exclusives that were on the PS3 that I either didn't get around to playing, or probably just better in general. But for me, Folklore was the very first next-gen HD game that I ever saw. So for me, it holds a lot of nostalgia value. I remember going over to my friend's house to play the game and just being in awe at how incredible the game looked with the particle effects and just how it looks in high definition. Then years later, I finally got a chance to play it for myself, and wow, was I surprised. It's got this really cool mix of adventure detective work where you have to go around town and finding different clues to solve a mystery. And then there's a second half of the game when you go into this other realm fighting monsters and using monsters to help you fight. If you want more details on the game itself, I have a review up on the channel that you can click and check it out for yourself. But for me, the reason why this game makes this list is mainly because it was the first game of this generation and really just holds a lot of nostalgia value. Tales of Xillia. Now, I might have been a little bit disappointed if you've watched my review, but overall this is still a really great game. I think my expectations came from this game selling super well in Japan when it released, and me being a little bit disappointed that the only PS3 Tales game we got was Tales of Grace's up into that point, which was natively a Wii game. So for me, Xillia was going to be that next-gen HD Tales game with all of these improvements, and it was going to be amazing. While it didn't exactly blow me away, it's still really solid with the same great combat, a huge world to explore, and fun characters. I also thought it was cool that the game gave you the opportunity to play as one of two characters instead of just giving you one character to play as. Now admittedly the story is pretty much the same for both of them, but it's still cool to get different perspectives and also provides a lot of variety to replay the game. I think one of the biggest improvements that I enjoyed most was the bigger world. Typically in Tales games there's an overworld map that you would see in normal JRPGs, but instead it gives this more interconnected zones map that's kind of like Final Fantasy XII. There were more things to explore and discover, and overall just made the game feel bigger. The side quest system is also more robust than ever, which I really enjoyed. While it didn't live up to my expectations, it's definitely one of the best RPGs in the system, and one of my favorite PS3 exclusives.
PlayStation AllStars Battle Royale!
Now I know many of you are shaking your heads, but give me some time to explain here. When this game first got revealed, it was basically like a Super Smash Bros. Ripoff and nobody wanted to give it a chance. Especially when everybody found out that Crash Bandicoot and Spyro and Cloud and Sora and everybody that people expected to be in the game weren't going to be in it. However, me and my friends are longtime PlayStation fans and we decided to get the game anyway and we had a lot of fun with it. This was mainly played at big parties, or we would all get online and play together. And once you really dive into the game and get into the minutia and figure out the systems, it's actually really fun. Some of my favorite characters to play as have been Sly Cooper, who can go invisible, and he's kind of cheap, he's like god tier in the game, and also my girl Kat from Gravity Rush. I spent a lot of time playing this game and preparing for it at tournaments and MagFests, just playing online, and even getting the Platinum Trophy. While a lot of people didn't give this game even a fair chance, me and my friends really got into this game and had a lot of fun with it. There are a lot of games that I'm sure people feel like that are deserved to be at this spot, but for me, I had a ton of fun with PlayStation AllStars, and it fits right here at number 8. Dragon's Crown. Now when I first heard of this game, it didn't really seem like my kind of game. Then I finally got it, and oh my gosh, was I ever hooked. See, this game is basically just a side-scrolling beat-em-up game, but it has this really deep loot system that has you coming back again and again. You'll go through levels and collect different treasure, and you'll get it ranked, and you'll decide, do I want this different kind of loot? And there's also all these side quests that the guild will give you to constantly keep you going back to do different things in the game. And what's cool is there's so many different classes to play as. So once you play through as the elf, you can go through as the warrior or the sorceress or the wizard. So this game will keep you playing for hours and hours. Now I know there was a lot of controversy with the character designs with the sorceress and whatnot, but I think the overall art style is absolutely gorgeous, as Vanillaware has that signature style. And seriously, once you start playing the game, you won't even notice the stuff like the sorceress and the exaggerated characters. I'm really glad Atlas decided to pick this game up because it's seriously great and everybody should be playing it, and it's one of my favorite PS3 exclusives. Puppeteer. Now every once in a while a game will come out that you can tell wasn't necessarily made for a profit, but just somebody had a really cool idea in their head and wanted to make a game about it. And Puppeteer definitely exemplifies that. This game is kind of a weird mishmash. It's basically like a collect-a-thon platformer game, but what's cool about it is that the screen is constantly changing. You'll be on a platform 1 minute and then all of a sudden the screen will fly one way or fly upwards, and they'll just be totally different. Throughout the game, there'll be curtains on the side and lights at the bottom, as if you are at a play watching it. And Puppeteer is supposed to be just that, like a play that you're interacting with. It's very cool visually, it has some charming characters, and it was awesome because it was released at a budget price of $40. If you have a PS3 and have not played this game is getting cheap because nobody bought it. Go out and buy it and support some really cool games, because this is definitely one worth playing and one of my favorite games on the system. Valkyria Chronicles. Now if you want the details about what this game is, you can definitely go watch my review, I'll leave a link to it. But the reason why I'm putting it on this list is that it just sort of holds some nostalgic value for me. See, growing up, Final Fantasy Tactics was one of my favorite games. It was so customizable and you could, put your characters any way you wanted on the strategy game. And Valkyria Chronicles was really the only HD, quote-unquote, AAA strategy RPGs we ever saw on the PlayStation 3. The cel-shaded art style is so beautiful. The characters are great, the music is amazing, and the gameplay is so deep. It was one of the earliest PS3 exclusives to release, and one of the first ones really worth buying a system for. It's such a shame that this didn't really sell very well and got shoved aside on the PSP, but the original stands as one of the best games on the system and one of my favorites on the PS3. Journey. What's so special about this game is I feel like it really bridged the gap between what a boxed retail game is and what a quote-unquote indie downloadable game is. I mean, it won so many Game of the Year awards when it released, and it was totally well-deserved. That game evokes so much emotion without ever having text or a real story. It's just you and this player going around this world, having very minimal communication, and just having a great journey together. I think this really set the standard for what indie games could do, and I mean, look at it now. The PS4 is all about indie games and pushing them to the forefront, and I think Journey was one of the first few that really started that movement, especially on the PlayStation 3. If you own a PS3 and have not played this game, do yourself a favor and get it. It's one of the best 2-hour experiences you'll ever have in your life, I promise. The Last of Us. Wow, what an absolute incredible hallmark of storytelling through video games. This was one of the first games where I ever, 1, went on media blackout and didn't want to see anything about this game, and 2, took a day off to just dedicate to playing this game, and it was completely worth it. This totally crazy, broken world is just beautiful with the art style, and also has these two great characters, Joel and Ellie, and the way the game tells the story, not only through cutscenes, but also through gameplay, is magnificent. Naughty Dog should be absolutely proud of himself for creating a complete masterpiece and one of the best games you could own on PS3. For me, it wasn't just the story they wanted or just the gameplay. I feel like it's one of the few games that combined them both together in a way that wasn't too quote-unquote video gamey and too much of just a story. It was a great balance of both. I think companies like Capcom and Konami that make these horror franchises like Silent Hill and Resident Evil should take note, because The Last of Us is doing survival horror right. Make sure you play this magnificent game because it surely is worth it. Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. Now, I'd always heard that this was like one of the best games of the year, won so many awards, and I never really got around to playing this game. And finally, one year I got it for Christmas, and wow, what a crazy ride this is. It's basically like Indiana Jones for a modern age, and Nathan Drake is just an amazing character to fill that role. He's witty, funny, and there's also a completely great cast of characters like Elena and Sully. And the game is just an overall fun ride to go on. It's one set piece to the next. First you're on that train level, then you're on a collapsing building. The game just never lets up, and I love it. Uncharted 2 is not just a system-defining game, but also a genre-defining one. Developers to this day are still trying to top the set pieces and the explosions and just the craziness that Uncharted 2 put its players through. In my opinion, Naughty Dog is the best developer in the industry, and I feel like where they really cemented that mark is with Uncharted 2. It's such a hallmark of this generation. I feel like a lot of people would probably put it number 1 as their favorite PS3 exclusive, but for me, there's just one more. No Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch. It's going to be really hard for me to kind of put into words why this game is so special to me, but allow me to try. For me, JRPGs were the games that really got me into video games, that got me really dedicated with, games like Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy Tactics, Legend of Dragoon, Xenogears, and much, much more on the PS1 and the PS2. So for me, when the PS3 came around, I was really hoping for that next AAA JRPG, and unfortunately the games that did get released either disappointed or they weren't really RPGs and there just weren't very many to begin with. So when Ni no Kuni came out, it fulfilled every dream for that AAA PS3 RPG that I was hoping for. Of course, the first thing that's immediately going to stand out is the gorgeous art style from Studio Ghibli, but the game has everything that an old school RPG fan would want. It's got a world map, it's got towns to explore, it's got tons of characters that are really fun, it's got familiars that you can collect like Pokemon, and there's just so much to do. There's like the Ghost Casino, there's collecting, there's the Battle Arena. It's just exactly what an old school JRPG fan like me would want. I really hope Level 5 does a sequel at some point because this game is so special and so amazing, and I'm super glad that it sold well for Namco when they localized it. Well, there you have it, folks. Those are my top 10 favorite PS3 exclusives. I'm sure they're not yours. I'm sure they're very different, but I'd love to hear your list. I'm super excited for PS4 to come out. I hope we get some more JRPGs and more from Naughty Dog, but overall, I'm really excited and I can't wait for the next gen to begin.
Greatness awaits.